Can we continue this later?
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, have fun, everyone.
Thanks. Before we start.
Lucille Summer. You're fine.
All right. So
Everybody have it pulled up? Cool. Contention, what is satellite space debris is a part 2 critical tipping point cycle, that's cascading destruction of satellites, blah, blah, blah. 2010, given the response we're going to bring mitigation remediation represented forward from losing the viability space take feeding to study show mitigation also with remediation from light crucial estimates from 150 million objects, 1 millimeter impacts with small objects called damage to be trapped out larger objects from space as satellites as count source and romantic cascade effect collisions result in an exponential growth in the debris which will increase it even no new logic take only a small fraction of debris can be detected maneuver made no feasible due to restricted time reaction number of collisions will mitigation will not be enough these as finding studies need to confirm a simulation and combination of mitigation remediation measures needed to overcome the negative changes involved to catastrophic satellites are key to agriculture, acclimatization, and military readiness are away. 2019 agricultural water relies on meteorological and environmental forecast farmers can plan for precipitation and temperature fluctuation increase in the year planners can mitigate floods and monitor invasive species access to data from satellites organizations ensure the security of property resources environment economy that dependable data and forecast are security risks could be severely hampered with observation becoming increasingly important as such are more concerned with the status counters level with increased risk of improperly handling and managing resources and natural disasters specifically satellites solve food insecurity well more 2018 with the world's population expected to grow to 10 billion satellite technology could be key for agricultural better informed distribution based on historical patterning full reset and unhealthy changes and need to detect when plants are not getting enough or too much water flooding droughts and invasive pests at high risk. Satellite temperature could be used to make a prediction smallholder productivity can ensure that millions of increasing yield reducing the risk and lowering the impact of agriculture. Food insecurity causes Pakistan instability and terrorism. Those spill over and destabilize the region. New in 2018. Pakistan reflects the number of conditions like high likelihood of instability with different versatility. The number of links between food insecurity and instability may be relevant to Pakistan is associated with social unrest, protest by rising food prices, represented by vehicle opposition. The government's food rights may affect different groups. Average percent internal plan for water irrigation may result in general friction rates and directly to contribute to recruitment arms against such organizations pay for the means for persistent between 2005 and 2015. Pakistan defense 19 security sensitive arrests were grievance over food prices specifically identified food prices linked to a level of instability which has the potential to impact regional and international where these countries' vulnerability food insecurity is linked to extreme weather problems that have these food insecurity disrespect government effectiveness and Taliban strongholds. Enemy food insecure groups will get nuclear weapons causes into Khyber Makhal of 2018. Pakistan's nuclear weapons program that may prove to be just as dangerous just as the ability of the NUCO and Iran. Pakistan's will to went to amassing the third largest threat of weapons representing dangerous new threats to the jihadists. Military jihadist organizations and nuclear rogue elements continue to operate battlefield weapons are more risky than Pakistan's rapid residents are nuclear arsenal women and battlefield nuclear weapons has another factor instability for the risk of nuclear weapons killed in the hands by the rogue elements of Pakistan or international jihadists. Even a limited Indo-Pak war causes planetary devastation problem. 20 limited nuclear war between Indian impacts of a deficit to the planet. Several studies that model the global impact of a limited 10-day nuclear spillover would in no way be limited. Lists results severely conservative based on terrorist attack. Pakistan sponsored military groups that had repeatedly led the best criminal military retaliation. Pakistan needs to host some of the world's most populous and densely populated cities, even though the bomb caused tremendous casualty and immediate effect and would kill 20 million people. Nuclear basket could also trigger deadly fire, so radioactive fallout may disseminate across the globe. The particles may also deplete 50% of the ozone layer, causing cancer and killing off plant life, marine particles, still effective decimating facials. 3 internal links. First, debris mitigation and removal of 12 satellites and outweighs all causes. Mohan 2019. I think the most crucial factors comply to debris mitigation. 10% failure results in 40 failed satellites per year, 200 year electrical one call station, or results in another 200 airlines. We need to remove unused objects. A huge increase in number of operators, number of catalog objects. So if business as usual practice are followed, and elevated potential for growth and the resulting rise in injury. Second, data sharing and transparency, self-collections, ensures follow and builds trust. We into to a serious inadequacy of the U.S. military, making significant improvements to U.S. satellite building and catalog, requires thematic tracking data from network sensitive security around the U.S. positional data from satellite operations, important part of SSA international cooperation on necessary data sharing between governments and projects establish a level of that necessary. The U.S. military has nearly 50% false positive. The reason was lack of information about future plan maneuvers, combination of conditions, and lack of information related to collision. SSA can serve as a deterrent in which to detect and attribute responsible actors in action. SSA can help be responsible, can help responsible safety agriculture, others in action responsible. There is an increase in use of misapprehension descriptions and mistrust of progress like conflict communities, more countries increases that they from reliable and trusted source can help prevent this happening. Third, declassification removes the incentive for other countries to target satellites. No info sharing. DA Sweden 2012 declassified the overall location while maintaining the classification of their capabilities, limitations, limit the impact. Others change to operational security to the policy not publishing the location continues. The U.S. military not publish orbital data instead of publishing SSA data so satellite operators can perform the no analysis program to greatly increase the work with the security policy. Also to hinders cooperation with key partners and increasing the amount of accurate processes they will benefit the United States. The fact the U.S. government strength and location of these objects leading more curiosity, publicity, and eventual discover many amateur observers have sophisticated tools for non-cooperative tracking. The policy should still protect the program name or designation, mission function, capabilities, limitation. These details are truly military useful, also easier to protect the position of these daily reconnaissance cells with community public in a way that still protects their advantage by reducing frequency of public updates out of the orbit of these satellites. Contention 2 is ADR. Unilateral ADR tests are coming across gray zones of military ambiguity. SEAL 2019, China calls them scavengers, requests calls from back from the U.S. Gulf of Fear these structural effort to really kill our government independence to grab vital GPS satellites. As the ASF states in 2019, threat of space threat of the Chinese experimental satellites are multi-communication satellite and military objectives similar to that of Russian government fast close to satellites can make up intercepting and signals for unbreaking satellite use. So there's no point in winning it over to war for nobody to leave Earth to get themselves out and use China. Russia and the United States are looking for less destructive ways to dominate space, including rebel satellites, countries with personal limits, accepted norms, accepted behavior, controlling norms, ambiguous intent of unilateral ADR will cause moving space weaponization that escalates only the plan, guarantees peaceful development. Joe Wilson Prospect 2019, weaponization cross up with new, more viable approach seems to be doing state aircraft limited maneuverability of asset space satellites would be able to escape the operator might be tempted to misuse their appearance for Earth, although international law may be inactive and for soldier activity. The operational satellites will constitute an active aggressive any target system. Will get plenty warning, miss any city ADR system may become a target plan. These that's all HQ hours operating the ADR system will be necessary for ensuring that the safety ability space to do ensure that the space accuracy its development is calls for coordinating the effort among nations while ADR would only limit potential as well as the unclear nature of attack could change the calculations of the space for a nation. This system is being developed by a single country on major space development to develop this capability to attack will cross the threshold for effective weaponization. Only government cooperation solves unilateral and private ADR triggered arms race began in 2018 to raise national security solution to orbital overhead only field the prospects and sensitive for governments into nobody can be sure about the intent behind a commercial decline of culture and have governments will risk it has space over to look at military action solutions to debris has both allies and rivals know this attack would end up in counter space. There's no getting away from it. Any domain accident or deliberate events involving fear to reinforce ravage peace and space dual use ambiguity guarantees miscalculation that escalates Prague 2018 space and versus sustainable governance. And crisis management, ambiguous high stakes environment, create additional communication, physical and technical limitations, limit awareness, and increased difficulty in distinguishing between unintentional, natural events, perception leads to unintended expression, ambiguity, makes communication more complicated, great instances intensified by dual use tech, there is a permeable division we covered in commercial space that creates fewer, various military use of stealing capabilities, nuclear war, space with offense, dominant misperceptions, trigger retaliation, Finch 2015, nations have less experience, lack of common understanding, creative misconception, stability, against faith, creative chasm undermines nuclear stability, disputes with offense, dominant domains, this way the first strike stability, creating pressure for early action, the defense level, and for kind of attacks, undermine power rejection, face by weapons, maybe uniquely destabilizing by threatening power reduction or assertive ability to retaliate against, to strike against, as I like to inadvertently engage with data for vital instruments, ambiguity, existing inherent characteristic, inherent the short time frame, making sort of interpretation is a clear recipe for misconduct. It's reverse called multilateral debris removal generates trust, prevents weaponization. Yuan 2016 ADRs are one of the common challenges that existing international space law needs to strengthen international committees to address issues for international cooperation. International cooperation prevents dependency for long-lasting international peace cooperation should be promoted collective action that needs to cope the increased rate of removal projects carried out by multilateral cooperation will delay mistrust and enhance confidence among states. Contention 3 is solvency. The United States federal government should establish space cooperation with Russia and China by contributing to debris removal projects and establishing a space situational awareness catalog that requires satellite declassification and notice in case of impending collision. Thus, plan solves and causes the follow-on anniversary of 2011 preserving to protect its national security. The U.S. review of binding international agreement regarding endless space to remove all types of control space and fix the United States and the international approach to minimizing space to support could be the catalyst needed to effectuate the international treaty on the seas to treaty also say any info exchange must include the location of sensory for other countries to avoid collisions. China says yes. We in the 2016 China seeks to avoid the creation of international laws in dispute because it perceived that it must accept rules that have been settled mainly by the United States because of the differences later in New China has clear interest in bilateral cooperation and play a role in the formation of new international regimes that working together reinforce the desire to be seen as playing leading roles in space governance and being responsible for space. The United States and China should enact confidence in should reduce tensions, risk of a crisis escalating the outright conflict with the countries who benefit significant SSA capabilities, increasing data sharing. China says yes. Government officials boost 2018 administrator of INAS and his Chinese counterpart, but the INAS with interest in working together to Kalan. The CNSA is working over joining 100% for the international part of the benefit of human civilization and progress of human society. We can start by cooperating with such uniform that and included the exchange of scientific data, space situational awareness, information, sharing space situational awareness, interactive space information, and maybe another area of cooperation we need to preserve the space environment for generations to come. The only way we're going to be able to do that is to collaborate. Russia says yes, and they'll do 2014. The Russians seek cooperation to remove World War III. Russian its carrier liability in the 1970s convention to represent the enormous value and a number of economic model for space reclaim that use to take crucial to put together an agreement between Russia and the U.S. and its heritage of Russian space agreement provide a strategic opportunity for Russia to take its international business, international investment. And a transparent non-military commercial tracking system is needed. We can make the same type of transition from orbital dipper tracking systems back to Advantage 1, satellite solved disease, Wheeler, 2015 defense that they get evidence, using satellite applications have an important role to play. Preventative evidence requires a deep state requires reliable surveillance, mobile laboratory use, genetic analysis techniques to identify biological agents, effectiveness of diagnosis, dependent on real-time communication. By satellite, spread diseases to data, lack of information is how to treat a person infected. Satellites can fill this gap. The importance of reliable data connectivity cannot be overstated. The quality of care and effectiveness of international plus improves with high-quality connectivity to be able to increasingly used to fight public health emergencies internationally. Disease causing future burnout. 2016 transportation of our new host and disable looks to the more transportation, more aggressive paths and able to spread. So that's a critical point with passion because so aggressive the entire population that civilization may be a part of critical threat. So bulletin for historical evidence is not a good guide. Evidence is can be destabilized. The use of highly skewed network of social interactions with very highly connected individuals, marked individuals.
Great.
Yep.
After the plan, are all U.S. satellites declassified, as in Russia and China know where they all are?
Yeah.
Okay. Do they have the capabilities to figure out where they are now, or is this like new
yes,
info?
They do.
Okay.
They can figure out where they are because you can just point telescopes at the sky and see where the satellites are located. The plane does not declassify what the satellites do, but it does tell them where the satellites are.
But they already know where all the satellites
yes,
are.
I'm gonna make. They already know where some of the satellites are. They can find them if they want to. The argument is just that cooperation. The argument is that cooperation and declassification is necessary to build trust. They will not strike those satellites because they don't know which satellites are military and which ones are not.
Why don't China and Russia trust the U.S. right now?
Because the United States is weaponizing ADR technology.
So we're weaponizing ADR technology. Like we're doing. Continue.
Also just general lack of dialogue on strategic space assets.
So lack of dialogue on strategic space assets. The plan has us cooperate over ADR removal. How is that like enough to fix overall strategic space programs? We're still developing ASATs. They're still developing ASATs.
So
like every other
China's most recent ASAT test. Initially, they told the international community that they were just trying to get rid of a dead satellite, right? That they were trying to do ADR technology.
So
China makes the claim that broader weaponization is untenable in the international community, which means that countries are looking to soft weaponize space, or they're perceiving other countries as doing that with ADR technology.
But like the specific example you gave is like China doing an ASAT test. After the plan, would China like be able to do that?
They no longer can get away with that because, they no longer have any reason to, right? Because they know that the United States and Russia are also not weaponizing space.
Because they've seen our satellites and now
because we've created a cooperative framework for the development of space technology to guarantee that it is not seen as a threat.
Cooperative framework?
Yeah.
Okay, how does the plan spill over to do that? Is that like part of the fiated mechanism?
Yeah, it is. So when we develop debris removal technology together, the Dobos and Project evidence says that there's like certain forms of technology that are more or less weaponizable. We cooperate over what types of technology we allow, and then we deploy it together, and our scientists work together.
Specific scenarios, you say like Pakistan food crisis, the evidence says between 2005 and 2015 there have been like over 10
that didn't
riots.
trigger the impact because Pakistan had not deployed its tactical nuclear weapons. Increased recruitment of terrorist groups allows those weapons to be stolen.
Okay, so they're going to steal tactical nuclear weapons. Are they going to use them because they're terrorists, or because food crisis, and then they decide they want to use nuclear weapons? I don't understand.
I think that's sort of irrelevant to the internal link, whether which of those is probably a little bit of both. To be honest.
Okay.
Both of those things trigger the impact.
Disease barium evidence says that there's some kind of virulent disease. What kind of cure would satellites allow us to get to prevent that from causing extinction?
Well, so it sort of lets us track outbreaks and figure out what medicines need to be put where.
For Advantage 1 and Advantage 2. key assets, U.S. campaign jar, data Chinese special forces, deep nuclear arsenal, Chinese leaders use news, while their civilian consequences for the war would be devastating and to that neither seem very beneficial for the blue civilian control power, whatever other trigger remains conventional war, the French Chinese also will source of flash by Taiwan and work use conventional hostile like threat Chinese nuclear capabilities would be all but guaranteed use strategy force conventional breakthrough like the danger Chinese nuclear arsenal, seen on law men, Chinese leaders considered than China by seeing nuclear escalation ways and conflicts such as escalation fears from China's history suggest otherwise the pattern could unfold. Today, all SSA data sharing prevents implementation in a crisis. Cooperation is a front to counter U.S. targeting and take out American space assets. Tells 14 the best way to charge China for good opinion that we suffer. Thus, Turkey demonstrates capability of storing any space arms with a loss of space capabilities and possibly catch traveling to the U.S. China began to build us state divide for U.S. system identified no space capital loss of responsive back to U.S. targeting data enable to integrate China's nuclear power was out to differentiate between U.S. and nuclear space reconnaissance system over flight hundreds and stops for Chinese commander station navigation field commitments to move and disperse operations across the Nectar SSA driven by desire to fill American spaces and all objectives required by China capabilities of platform stations for China were to adhere to the code of happening after turbulence counter-space programs for investigation and studies transfer requirements of public diplomacy Chinese power strategic gas and no fire most civilian military Chinese conflict missions and technology overseas research and inhabitants investors to reduce technology people and assess civilian for cooperation between alliance and military investigation and collaboration Chinese civilian space program activating its military U.S. damage limitation in a crisis stops Chinese first strike kills less than 6,000 people press out of U.S. nuclear first strike distributes to China's nuclear arsenal created concern complete China means nuclear termination against American territory and improving U.S. counter force weapon based on weapons ready military crisis so war must be terminated to minimize civilian casualties and risk great political system however pressure China little fall rate after nuclear rises high and master Virginia greater interesting our Chinese it would be 1,000 in the most destructive scenario. Leaders might raise states by placing nuclear force on the level of force of the China about the president structure Chinese also before they can be launching comparison for such war for our enemies comparison the fighting conventional level Washington fake vision U.S. successfully trying to put ourselves on the alert privacy and printed first time where followed U.S. leaders and light warning from Chinese defense analysts might use nuclear weapons president might feel compelled to strike from U.S. first strikes would avoid population centers by successful Chinese strikes from the U.S. cause massive retaliation against Chinese cities Libra press 7 in the aftermath of limited U.S. counter-force attack that avoided Chinese style population targets U.S. leaders explained that any Chinese nuclear retaliation against the U.S. only trigger second more farmers as American strike causes nuclear war and extinction only city attacks for sufficient arms are called nuclear war reduce the decibel to the possibility of complete extinction with better observation nuclear digital magnitude that initial fears with those years with global cooling negative those of the president in history and human race and economic consequences expulsion by burning cities generating clouds of smoke stratosphere cause you not reaching sites in the lower look at right now next negotiations ADR cooperation requires clarifying international space law causes strategic bargaining to extract concessions Soldier 16 legal difficulties in ILO to move to remove cost of amending rules or high crisis and to reblock before scale not be used to secure degrees valuable to track career for manufacturing space no definition really accepted approval of required concession negotiation will be costly under should be absolutely high minimum launch will be unwilling to participate after required minimum seemingly clarification most clean overall of 60 people want to know two parties limited to anything personal space related issues previously seven merging parties began guarded strategically for unrelated extensions the cost of change of legal barriers to global response are high current interpretation of OC's flexible laws innovation renegotiating space law creates commercial uncertainty Johnson 17 after renegotiations and signs on issues yield the result of their inevitably specific welfare provision anti-ethical to U.S. economic interest of them to deal local by saving requires to supervise authority self-executing U.S. loose flexibility opportunity establish domestic law the president regulatory push and encourages innovation having influence while other countries do CIL nothing good can offer dies and rapid hold read making it the station for the U.S. national leadership by establishing domestic pressure and the U.S. will be able to negotiate future trade positions strict opportunities will have established that for domestic law will drive self-support legal uncertainty prevents successful asteroid mining Marquez 17 for PR reducing the link predictability of the land successful as an OST the consistent interpretation by the U.S. prevents predictable environment which we can force one of the key for recent not such really specific activities rescue for absolute and most crucial preventions enabling favor space resource utilization and PR utilization asteroid reduces closer discussions about how to interpret and apply the OST across negotiation position taking up consisting the U.S. interpretations gaining credibility in the process asteroid mining calls mineral shortages resource conflict involved in terrestrial mining back order this 66 years crucial almost modern industry because also many of the alternative great tech progressive elements are demand for rising the bottom of prices so the skyrocketing and create conflict mining institution with structure earth and fighting controlling technical accessibility water deforestation mining construction large destruction solid waste and cold war as source of processing waste and either industrial structure water move forward industrial goods require planning will deplete in short time regulating mining to NEOs or reduced to negative effects of mining binding loss causes extinction McCarthy 18 and system extinction celery soon facing similar failure research and climate change biotech science clear about time we feel what's happening maybe too late as Jeffrey's future patronage or life to war system food chain consistent natural resources depend on ecosystem control generating clean distributing water help mitigate the living water crisis cleaning air carbon season and release the environment clear protection natural disaster big stress industrial pollution starter hands windows narrowing the impeachment no removal Fisher 1115 the House use twice impeachment the Senate will get a bipartisan 2/3 doesn't operate in process shift to a partisan leader bipartisan all takes that at least our problems of which charges but got emerges could the principal Senate couples abandoned trouble thinks in there are no sentences likely Senate GOP only abandoned Trump if Dems can make a national security case against him Harris actually say statutes establish minds of the public president put security in jeopardy he might do it again if they succeed impeachment with Devin has everything hinges on the narrative Dems were reluctant to keep him for allegation from his national security Trump's seated portraying increased access issues, but looking at no sites with the issue of security. This does not mean someone will convict less party breaks down troubles via the ballot 2020 this year and title here with death, stealthily pay impeachment that security might be an obviously about perceived as a security threat card in 19. New will provide an opinion of worthless sense bilateral relations like from American see the US and Russia more rivals and partner fake see Russia create foreign sides 20 percentage points life majority of deaths probably because Russia threat and militarization relations Europe left democratic engagement arms control agreements credible federal removal clauses Iran war extinction methods 924 Trump is always a scandal but two factors given rise to Ukraine rights attention that Iran Pennsylvania create short-term rules to centuries into battle direct impeachment Clinton last two major attacks against Trump stuff from election rate foreign Iran impeachment becomes serious when put past the use wars distraction to handle such a change responsibility and launch was Trump has not shown himself to be constrained unilateral counterplaying ISIS federal government should establish an umbrella bureau responsible for state sector management oversight regulatory functions including managing and open SSA data repository conducting analysis recommending the numerous operations promulgating SAM regulations and responsible behavior for safe space back within U.S. jurisdiction to experiment develop deploy and demonstrate space debris remove system to govern conscious of the private sector funded by launch and service fees remove U.S. debris and the debris of other nations upon the request prohibit interference with non-hostile satellites that have been offered up for removal require prior public notification active removal maneuvers to satellite interests in the vicinity operations. Do you want me to read this card?
Yeah.
First place, all satellite advantage ball. 19 fixed obstacle, SCM is stressed a notable problem with external relations among the U.S. and China. Integral, the technical systems paramount states may take over business and develop states and shows the data political limits may be taken counter international freedom of life and members rather not to result to terror to negotiate bubble for domestic legislation, liability, responsibilities used domestic propagate rights and indicate responsible behavior for executions, political different states establish determined liabilities, users practice be one that places support for Bluetooth rules solidify best practice of the use for states that come to consensus gradual measures complement on these understand risk against military act as measure to measure whether or not might be possible. Last two playing cells ADR avoids miscalculate buying for goal in 19 selective cleaning operation can also be mandatory international possessions in case of harmful interference to deal with debris. Discussion would minimize the third space weaponization, large scale with illegal orders, cooperating multiple authorization, transfers, control lists might not be affected as approach green concrete on track. After set of on catalog lethal debris must also go river and political friends and mitigation line lists can be effective removal of 5 hours per year with reference to increasing step by another construct consensus for future agreement. Satellites advantage. Satellites food card is aspirational but about potential future the first two things. Okay. No impact to debris, wine 9 empirical. No results do not agree. The only way to prevent problems from existing impacts with states of majority collision down all places such as lifetime risk is less than over 1% relative to low relative amounts loss involved in removing objects for about 200% historical non-emission filler rating space for obvious all causes to food instability, climate change, magnifies impacts inevitably. No impact to Indo-Pac war existing high levels of conventional nuclear deterrence prevent the recent heterogeneity impacts and estimating from threats and mission low intensity with continued nationally flexibility slide into war and military commander as sports levels don't take worse possibility Pakistan control so ensure weapons were not used or sold into conventional terrorists and not deter war. Mismatch between internal impact to disease bariums about disease that is both lethal and virulent which he says are impossible to cure. No extinction bar 17 pandemics are next pandemics on like constitution 83 and animal stages less than 1500 plus 4% attributed to infectious diseases. 9 were global disorders out of practice attributed on species very numerous global disorders and capable of rational size likely to be called by pandemic highly compacted cake was before they spent this electric pressure path not to be lethal. The ADR advantage. ADR fails exacerbates debris cooperation does solve weed and love the air because it has space activities and nurture debris poses zero risk of space environment may corrections of physical harm to produce residual fuel which is split to around the operations made difficult by their remote nature laser and development number of sites around the globe 100,000 fire to remove debris. No space war, no impact if it does happen. Hamburg 17 such a space war will be waging heavens and earth. The ground hypotheticals analogies for all the price requires division offenses actions or growth response scale substituting given high cost launch capacities international access come from relocation to be detected in initial tactical confidence fighters several lessons become essential to detect is not record orbit so debris saturated further as become possible. Clearly, you know, separate targets for analysis and non-belligerent ahead of space hacking and globally complicated actions and ability to pit losses may mean none of the combatants are able to dominate issues of the global reach may confine the conflicts to small areas. No space arms race or conflict universal self-interest Melflow 13U. Soviet Union U.S. where the ASAP weapons and prisoners to London. ASAP wars have both worse off than mutual states that still hold separate countries to deploy ASAP time. Say arms is even less attractive than the Cold War to reverse location dangerous sustainable use for dual space make off think twice about the airspace. Mark F. Think twice about arms race.
Let me find it. Cool. Are you good? Mm-hmm. My first question is about the unilat counterplan. The second plank, what does it mean to transparently develop ADR? What measures does the counterplan take to do that?
We would notify. Yeah.
Okay, so they already know that we're testing ADR systems and they're pretty mad about it. What does the counterplan do to resolve that?
Well, we notify and we change the purpose of it. The counterplan has us explicitly develop ADR for the purpose of debris removal rather than satellite or gremlins as the other evidence set talks about. The blunt card says that that's effective. When the U.S. declares or notifies other actors about
why would that be true when Trump has already said that he's gonna develop the Space Force? Like, why do they trust the declaration?
Well, they trust that Trump will develop the Space Force. The idea idea that Trump is militarizing, therefore nothing he says ever matters again, is obviously silly. He can say that he will do some things effectively and other people will believe him. There is no like broader incentive to militarize because the US has a lead. So if they agree they won't do these things, other countries will back off.
Okay. My next question is about the McCarthy evidence. I think it's descriptive of the status quo, the biology loss impact. It's about the sixth mass extinction that continues to, quote, accelerate around the world.
Yeah, so that would happen.
Engulfing thousands of animals.
But
yeah.
our McWhorter evidence above says that were we to be able to mine from asteroids, we wouldn't have to mine on Earth anymore, i.e. creating those destructive effects that would cause biology loss now.
The interpretation, there's a section of the OST that's like, you know, you can own things that you mine in space, and then there's a different section of the OST that's like, debris belongs to the country that, you know, put it there. Why does the plans, why does the plan interfere with the second one, and why does that cause interference for the first one?
So the internal link is about commercial industry perception. The Dustin card is really good about industries perceiving a renegotiation of space law as having potential future impacts on their activities in space because it's so costly to engage in those.
This evidence is pretty explicitly about amending the OST or it being in like negotiations via the UN.
Are both part of the OST.
Yeah,
you just
but
said they're like two different sections. Like, yeah, there's like a lot of sections. But
It says like amending the OST or entering new negotiations.
yeah, new treaty negotiations like in the UN, like the OST. I'm confused why this is a link to the app.
I'm like this is not the link card to the app. The link card is the Salter.
My next question is about damage limitation. Where have you read a piece of evidence that says that you said that China would first strike, and then you said the US first strike was good. Like, where have you read a piece of evidence that says that the United States first strikes? Absent the app. Why does the app change first strike capabilities that Lieber and Press talk about?
Well, so those are two separate questions. The app changes our ability to effectively first strike as per the
How?
Telus card because the middle of the card talks about how China seeks accurate data from SSA so they can tell where to move their mobile missiles to avoid our like.
But why does that make
satellites
U.S.
circling
first
around.
strike ineffective?
So like our satellites could not see where their mobile missiles are, so they would have survivability, i.e. we can't take out all their nukes.
I thought they were prepping.
No, we
Oh.
stopped at 9:37.
Okay, I should have just sent it. Did everybody get it?
Yeah, I'm still opening it though.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, it's crashing.
Sorry about that.
You can like do it a lot of
Sure, yeah. Advantage 1, satellites. Advantage 2, ADR. The Unilat counterplan. The damage limitation disadd. The negotiations to SAD, did I label that right? Okay, and then the impeachment to SAD. Did it stop crashing your computers?
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, everybody else good? Yep, okay. Indo-Pak War goes nuclear cause extinction, even a limited attack will cause escalation because of rising tension and nuclear deployment there. Evidence doesn't assume instability caused by protests and motivations for support insurgencies due to shortages. That's a Michelin and Rockland piece of evidence. So their impact defense doesn't apply. Yes, there's an impact. Yes, there's an impact. And rate cascades are going to happen in key regions and in key orbits that causes the destruction of satellites that takes out the key satellites to be able to predict weather patterns. The climate change argument is a uniqueness argument for the affirmative. Yes, climate change wrecks the environment, is going to cause food shortages and certain types of weather patterns. So the plan is key to being able to predict those things and giving information so the farmers can adequately adapt to those things that going for the disease impact. The second advantage, yes, space war dual use ambiguity allows for cloaking of intentions that breaks down trust of various to space war right now. Mixed signals causes inadvertent conflict. That's a brag and peck and piece of evidence that space is an offense dominant regime. So even if they are dependent upon states right now, there is a miscalculation scenario that their evidence doesn't assume ADR fails arguments, increasing the amount of cooperation between the technology between the United States and China and Russia would obviously be able to solve that back for this, but also to still causes perceptions of miscalculation. That's a Dobos piece of evidence. Even if it's a bad weapon, they still view it as weaponizable and ability to be able to take out our satellites. And the ASAT technology doesn't cause escalation argument. It is not true. It is not true. The Dobos evidence is the best, and post-states their evidence and says that new developments in our ADR technology will cause miscalculation. The Unilac counterplan.
Can you go back and answer no space arms race?
I did that above, but yes, space arms race, offense dominant. They have assets up there. They want to be able to prevent those from getting
That
over
evidence
to
about the
US.
Soviet Union.
And about the Soviet Union. Unilac counterplan. Permutation to permutation to the counterplane can solve for the satellite's advantage first. The cost single nation should not have the motivation to spend the amount needed for the upkeep and tech feasibility. That's a weak evidence into declassification due to deterrence or conflict. The confidence building measures and clarity of the sets are perceived to be run as the mill and non-threatening countries are less likely to attack them. Even declarations don't solve back for this because they don't know. Only cooperation is key to being able to solve. Can't solve for the second advantage cost. The unilateral deployment increases risk of miscalculation and escalation. ADR doubles as dual use, leaving even declarations of the adversaries for deployment can threaten a risk of retaliatory interest and possibility of ASAT destruction. That's a dual Boston Prague piece of the umbrella actors don't solve and lead to more debris. Larson in 2018, non-governmental actors want minimum regulation. Past experiences have been improved and public safety questions have arisen. Enforcement will also be a problem. Non-governmental actors regulation is big to read there. They would have to have the police power necessary for the regulation. Non-governmental entities, motivation or competition, the profit conflict motivation for safety. Non-governmental actor, the operators that regulate space to read is not a good idea. The counterplane creates ambiguity through declarations, causes resolution that escalates loose. In 2013, declaratory policy to the same as to not prevent the ASATs do not face the same kind of generate the same fear of demanding the encouragement and open the opponent advanced calculation only to the greater risk taking the opponent to defeat on Washington will do nothing. The opponents may judge to be around the U.S. declaratory policy reflects of deep decisions that opponents will likely escalate physical destruction will not provoke justification of military response to the opponent cultural practice unless it is fears to high tolerance for the risk that it might miscalculate the threshold to trigger response and miscalculation limits the scope of deterrence. But also the counterplans declaration arguments are obviously the status quo. China is already doing this by declaring it as trying to take out satellites right now, so it would obviously be perceived as hostile. That's a C piece of evidence for the 1AC damage limitation. No link. First answer, the astronomers can track satellites right now. Increases the info, decreases the amount of text because it increases the likelihood of detection. That's a weak piece of evidence. And 3 is the supposed secrecy increases chances of text due to curiosity and possibility of attacks. That's weak. 1 and 2. No link. Tell us is about not just about declassification, but also a distribution of information about capabilities. The plan shields that info. That's a first piece of weak piece of evidence. And cooperation leads to offloading, which solves innovation and threats. In 2016, the current policy to the restriction of the SSA stem for the desire to try to hide satellites, despite the fact that these satellites are already well known to trend regularly by amateur obvious and national security concerns prohibiting any of the new independent SSA services that have been done for the year. And see, we don't try to hide, but we do protect the details and capabilities the military would get to protect details on the SSA capabilities offloading, increasingly the demanding missions and free up the resources to focus on national security threats, which in turn will enable international cooperation. No legal link declassification doesn't mean that we tell them what the satellites are used for. No increasing the number of attacks and peers for early warning deterrence and financial incentives warrants. In 2019, SSA capabilities make it possible to observe classified space assets to the input, the location, maneuvers that can already be gathered the amateur observers to report determined those observations were sufficient of financial technical purposes such as the UC SSA that it would be useful to remain high even the diploma for the SSA sharing the SSA they may be inefficient uses only relatively to receive the information and reports regarding the another actors as satellites clear right from like the entities that involve the advanced SSA instead of the destructive activities in nations that involve the SSA are typically those that want a relatively large number of the assets of the effect to reinforce the spread of the SSA capable but not to significantly increase the risk of the attacks on space assets. No, U.S. first trade escalation is slowly China would make the trust escalate partly in 1017. Whatever is the terms of the war did not begin with U.S. rampant attacks against Chinese installations, and although the U.S. military would have preferred the engage to destroy Chinese anti-satellite assets, and currently the difficulty in invention scenario which the U.S. has paid for the political costs associated with climate the latter the escalation the U.S. needs to be prepared to observe the default of the PLA will allow the U.S. if it wants to restrict the China will decide whether to push the boat forward or back. No invasion of Taiwan, not Taiwan, no China, not possible for China to act. And in 17, the China would struggle to devote large numbers of Taiwan again. The PLA would have to ship troops and the equipment that the invasion and the would be done to the winning retaliation to the U.S. and the Taiwanese do not need to parity the different Chinese aggression negotiations. Is that? The plan saves the commercial space sector to bring the debris damage and the insurance and dual in 2017 and space co-op the collaboration has been one of the bright spots between the U.S. and the two adversaries that the Trump can leverage the space such space cooperation to remove the threat to our future space space place of the Kessler cast able to make the space test operation visibly impossible to current adverse and commercial services is a factory annual economic loss of the satellite industry declines of a paid to the gain insurance company they're on with a series of failures in 2013 reached 800 million private investment but also an increasing investment in orbital debris removal leads to sustainable space mining and colonization of antidote in 2014 technologies that will develop the deal with the debris will also be useful for dealing to capturing and mining in near Earth the asteroids of the lunar mining on orbit the assembly of the spacecraft and robot the transportation the materials of the other technology after the commitment to remove and recycle or rehabilitate the orbital debris that could be neutral so the industries but also the plan doesn't provide regulations and doesn't increase the amount of regulations over who owns certain types of space assets, i.e. the asteroids that they're talking about. It doesn't spill over and it doesn't prevent those from having no tipping points for the environment. Hence, in 2018 to 250 million years ago, the planet suffered the extinction of life is so ridiculously adapted that the thousands of species went to the right. The new test of the extinction purposes of resiliency. It makes no sense that existing tipping points of right diverse velocity with the Earth will collapse at a Monterey. There's no rational there's an evidence at a point at which the loss of the species, at least an ecosystem collapse locally or even locally. If the planet didn't collapse at a tremendous straight, it will collapse down the ecosystem. Never feel outright that it 600 experience no show the collapse. The impeachment is that. Enter the plan as Congressman McConnell and Senate GOP have to support the plan. Even their plan includes Trump as joint affairs in it. GOP will never flip no matter what. Lori and 19 senators will still be proceeded to pro-impeachment and commented the only fault of the train entirely removable from reality. Republican President Party would consider the conviction of Besser the betrayal of Trump supported to blame the Republican establishment Trump will go away and search for revolt when it would be fresh for all of this is what the President Republican Senate conference is ridiculous. Plan is a win for foreign policy, gets concessions from Russia and China over cooperation over ADR technology and SSA information. So over SSA information, but also space policy is in controversial error evidence lacks specificity court in 2017. Lily, I might need a few more cards.
Cool.
Court in 2017, one area of the under the radar space policy to the term that made time for the space that it has costed remarks that received a little attention to get swept away space policy with a little backlash to missions to take years outlasting presidencies that was also the accountability space that enjoyed by partisans and support of the public and NASA and the aspirations that the link is true the 25th Amendment trace the impact ho in 930 if Trump becomes more erratic the impeachment proceeds to the United States executive official to separate him from the new powers immediately he could permanently be separated. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment authorizes the governmental official to separate the president from the powers of the prince would immediately become the acting president whack. The job doesn't make any sense to context American first base of Landler and 1020 with the resignation of Ambassador Trump the ambassador Trump to prevent the defense of the security is based on political considerations. Trump's decision on Syria whether it is with his Mr. Retreat that the president decided to pull the trigger calculated with a white dog where he starts to lash out and won't be getting us into war will be the opposite. No, is this your? Oh yeah, no diversion where Lipton and murder ops in 2019. Trump probably want to start a diversion where there's a good reason to be skeptical. That an extensive body of the research suggests a diversionary doesn't necessarily distract the public. That Trump has repeatedly made clear to the opponents that starting the conflict with Trump. The market tend to be bigger than his body. Trump is here used to the gates of the gas against the civilians cross many, but his response was limited to the air structure. Trump and might seek to diversionary faced with North Korea as a sort of foreign policy quote that could bolster his domestic support. I don't know. Yeah, I finished that too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Then.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's fair. I'm just saying, like, I'm not paying attention to that. Yeah, what do you mean that's it?
Okay.
921.
Okay, you good?
Yeah.
This Corin card you read on the impeachment DA says that no one's paying attention to Trump's tweets about space. Do you have any defense to the link about foreign policy besides this like analytic about it?
What do you mean? Like
So
space
like
policy?
the link that we read is like Trump is perceived.
Yeah, I
as
agree.
a
I
national
think I know
security
what
threat.
link you're talking about. Yes, we have a plan is win for foreign policy, but I think that the foreign piece
Why
of
is it?
evidence.
Do you have? Why is it perceived by the public and?
It's
GOP
perceived by the public
senators
because
as a
obviously
win for
Trump
foreign
would
policy?
like tweet about how he was able to get China and Russia to have concessions over the offensive
This is
military
just, like,
capabilities of
speculating.
ADR
The next card you
technology.
read, the Co card, says that if it becomes clear Trump was engaging in obstruction of justice, the 25th Amendment might be invoked. Why would it be invoked if he starts?
It says or, but the first part of it, if Trump becomes more erratic,
Yeah.
or, so it says there are two different scenarios in which the nine sitting
It's talking
executive
about-
officials
it's
could
not
separate
talking
him from his
about
powers.
Being erratic in terms of him lashing out. It's saying erratic as in like messing with impeachment proceedings.
No, I think that it says that yes, that second half, yes, that is true, but there are also other instances in which he becomes erratic, in which he
Like,
starts talking about how
The
he was
20
going
the
to like
25th
lash out,
Amendment is like
etc.
if we think he's unfit to govern.
Yeah,
Not like
why
because
would that
we
not
don't-
also be an example of him being unfit to govern if he's making irrational decisions over
Like,
foreign
the
policy?
president
That
has
doesn't make any sense to
Never
me.
been removed because they lashed out or started a war.
Okay.
I don't, okay. The first argument you make at the top that says McConnell and the Senate GOP have to support the plan, what does that have to do? Like, when you say that, what is that interpretation of fiat?
It means
Like,
that they wouldn't be
literally
able,
changed
it
their
means that they
minds
wouldn't
about
be
the plan.
willing to utilize the plan as like a loss against Trump because it would also get pushed back on them as well.
Okay, so like, they won't hold Trump accountable for it because they're involved in passing a plan. Do you have a piece of evidence?
More
that
like
says
they won't like
NSP
use it as a
involves-
reason to impeach him.
involve Congress at all?
Yeah, I mean, we don't read it in the plan, but like if you.
Also, the red says NSP lowercase, not NSP proper noun. So it's not a national space policy like the piece of paper.
That's an interesting take. This Lowry
Sure.
card you read is like, it mentions one line at the top, the flaw in this scenario is removed from reality, but the bulk of this card is talking about if Trump were removed, it wouldn't be a fresh start for the GOP. It has, like, what is the reason why he won't be removed?
So I think that the first piece, like the first half of the card is just like, it would be seen as a betrayal to his base, a betrayal to the Republican Party to be able to like impeach him over the controversy that is happening right now. And then like it talks about how like Trump supporters wouldn't be happy about it, it would hurt their election chances, etc.
41.
Yeah.
921.
Do any of you have ibuprofen?
Yeah, I have that.
Do you mind if I have some? Sorry, I've had a headache all day.
I also have Tylenol if you like.
I don't really have a preference.
The doc should be sent. I'm closing out of everything else, so that my computer's not still on.
Yeah, I know. I hate it when that happens. Thank you so much.
Your water, you need some.
No, I don't water.
Okay, the order is the Unilot counterplan, the ADR advantage, then the SATS advantage. Okay, is anybody not ready?
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up right now. Sorry, I'm almost done. Okay, yep, good.
The counterplan does two things. One, creates a domestic STM regime that includes an umbrella bureau and open SSA data repository and regulations for responsible behavior. This solves our satellite advantage internal links about data sharing and transparency. It would declassify U.S. satellites as per their read-in evidence and allow other countries to voluntarily upload information to the database. Two, it invests in developing and demonstrating successful ADR technology and allows American companies to remove international debris upon request. Also miscalc because the second plan, one, prohibits approaching international space objects without permission, and two, requires ADR operators notify all satellite operators of their mission. Sufficiency framing, it only takes removing 5 large pieces a year to stabilize the debris belt. That's for goal. It means the second flank alone prevents satellite collisions, especially true because the only offense is solvency deficits. That is, they haven't made a links to net benefit argument. Perm to both. Links to net benefit will be in the 1NR. No shielding argument explaining the 2AR or 1AR is too late for it. Don't force me to reinvent the wheel in the 2NR in order to respond to it. Next argument is cost. There's no evidence attached to this argument, just assert it's too expensive. Obviously, the counterplan is capable of fiating past it. We also have good specific evidence. The counterplan's funding mechanism solves government contracts for private sector competition, encouraging innovation and cost minimization while accelerating remediation efforts, charging launch and service fees, ensures the private sector will be incentivized to get a head start in a critical future industry. And so, 10, government contracts create a competitive environment, encouraging innovation, cost minimization, to accelerate remediation, and several critical orbits could be addressed at once. Early investments would give the U.S. a head start in a critical industry. The government should establish special funds charging fees for U.S. satellite based on the residential permission once a removal system where operation eventually could come to the service. The fees. The next argument is that declassification causes all these issues. Notification solves this. It prevents miscalc. Their evidence is about the status quo, not the counterplan, explicitly prohibiting interference with unauthorized space objects and mandatory international notification about ADR operations minimizes the risk other countries perceive the counterplan as weaponization. That's for COLI. Prior notification of emergency communication solves miscalculus. Beta 17 U.S. guidelines code correlation and interference with stats not offered of the prior notification or retrieval mission as evidence in the vicinity. Immediate alert of any of the missions that does not go as planned. Objectors should be shown the benefits of debris cleanup outweighs the risk. U.S. declarations promote trust. Grego 10 public articulate approaches and goals to provide clear high-level guidance and clarify U.S. intention with the national community or enforcement against damaging satellite public to reduce suspicion. The U.S. intentions demonstrate good faith in reducing mistrust. The next argument is that we don't solve ADR and dual-use threats. The argument I made above is capable of solving it. If it's true that U.S. notifications are necessary and not just declaratory policy, then counterplan overcomes it. The counterplan also creates a broader regulatory regime, which means the objects are no longer perceived as dual use in such a damaging regime. The counterplan generates buy-in from other countries to agree to allow the U.S. to remove their debris. A step-by-step method is a better way to build a consensus because it first demonstrates an effective system, and the notification flank generates goodwill. That's for goalie. Bottom norms are more likely to create international buy-in than the plan. Beta 18 bottom approach to STM are more important. The U.S. has to live by example. Trust is key. Major actors will not join unless they believe will provide better clear one constitutional in the U.S. commercial state should lead rationals include accountability as the world's leader demands best practices faster and collaborative behavior norms have been being accepted at the bottom of the top down. The best chance begins not with security people, but private operators who desire a stable environment. The U.S. must be to publish its own version of practices unilaterally set the example, encourage a coalition of the willing to ostracize non-compliance and responsible behavior. China and Russia subvert progress and work with them, support norms through policy statements. Over time, China, Russia, and other outliers will be beneficial during easier than a straighter political process. Game theory predicts our theory of buy-in is correct in key 19. Game theory predicts viable strategy and encourages the country to policy of the U.S. to do the same to leverage by example coalition building and temper dynamics leading with unilateral action could foster cooperation and debris. Good faith signals both credibility and trust increase perception of cooperative outcome is likely including cooperation accounting for cost and benefits. U.S. debris regulation promoting good faith assessment. The U.S. cares about the welfare of the country, paves the way for the government policy because the U.S. is the premier actor and season official or several rules votes are especially possible. Fear of losing court cases incentivize other countries to buy in. Tattoo 17 promoting national esteem while not adhering to the other foreign actors will give birth to certainty in a court case will be possible with the judgment as the state that put in place such as the court will have reason due to gentlemen taken by the U.S. and appointed to resume collision while others will have to explain on that here such as system of president of national regulation but under the course of legality, the operation of the other actions face traffic pressure, non-compliers to act without cooperation, soldier 16. Unfortunately, actors may have unilaterally and be unlikely to run afoul of financial legally to the primary problems they can solve. Central including remove the debris unnecessary mitigation removal simply need to keep orbital sufficiently included to prevent the tipping point of 5 large views that debris removed every year or relaxing use simple ignition could use existing international forms of non-compliers. This would be less costly. The next argument comes from the Larson evidence. The counterplan solves private sector regulation by rewarding the companies whose best demonstrate ability to remove debris with a contract which incentivizes their responsible participation. Private companies have the incentive to clean up debris because otherwise it hurts their bottom line. Cleanup orbits are key to satellites, therefore they'll be responsible actors. The buy-in portion of the counterplan solves any international coordination argument. Other countries will be incentivized to buy into the counterplan system when it's demonstrated to be effective, which means the counterplan norms opens up a larger market. If anything, this argument applies to the app. Private companies will leave the US, Russia/China to find less restrictive regimes. Both teams have to win spill up to fully global coverage to solve. Where evidence says bottom up is comparatively more likely to spill than top down. That's the blunt argument. The next piece of evidence is ambiguity. Notification can solve that's above buy-in, also solved because it creates a kind of regulatory regime. The evidence is in the context of saying declaratory policy, i.e. what we do with nuclear weapons doesn't work in the context of cyber attacks. It's different from notification because it walks through the whole process of building, which is different, and creates an overall securitized regime which is sufficient for solving. Finally, they say the counterplan is a status quo. It's declaratory. China asserted they were doing it for good purpose, but then attacked something anyway. But that attack didn't cause nuclear war. If anything, it disproves the affirmative argument, and also the counterplan isn't the same thing because China was covert about the operational process, said that it was doing something, only notified actors afterwards. US found out about it via looking up at satellites. Quick implementation is key to solvency. Multi-constellations are about to be deployed. International call causes implementation delay. Tortura 19 is unlike a multi-level organization conversion agreements and basic hopes. So with current speed of evolution, multi-constellation are about to be deployed. Will agree international in the ways in which they handle the consequence. The third, SPD and gives away the first of the estimate of no short-term highly critical China deployment of huge space infrastructure will inevitably trigger auto reflection worldwide. Implementation trigger delay. Turn accidents and innovation. We did 19. The risk of lightning will go another 2 years long-term for new space environment from tragic areas of not taking now the concept of commercial data would impact economic growth and development of new space applications. Innovation leads to other countries. Now is the time. ADR. ADR fails at Sweden. It poses a hazardous space degree. It creates an environmental risk because it puts more object into space, which is worse even with international collaboration. Magnifies that. The counterplan solves because there's just one actor doing it. No space war. That's the Hamburg evidence. Spread of space that complicates the ability to deal with space objects. Attribution ensures states won't initiate the attack. They just assert space is unique. This evidence says space is unique and that attacks won't happen because you can attribute in the first place. And self-interest check space war. That's Mushure. ASATs create a prisoner's dilemma that disincentivizes arms racing because neither side believes that they can achieve military superiority. Since attribution in defense is inherently challenging, their answer to this argument is that it's about the Cold War, doesn't apply to the current scenario, etc. All of these are wrong because they speak to the broader strategic theory about the way arms racing works. Escalation is empirically denied. Down 18, the U.S. military saw the larger outbreaks of like aeronautics, science fiction, satellite first space warfare did not change the balance environment. Refer the U.S., China, and Russia have been developing space warfare for decades. Even the U.S. has made dominance should not cause war. Excellence have been made that space dominance violates the OSD. Russian and Chinese leader of UN treaty banning all weapons, space back up in attempt to limit super orbit. Russia and China say no. Blunt 19. SSA collected through variety of system and the different actor, different military asset sharing is the right to national security. Russia and China collect data standard integrity maintained to avoid multilateral system will need to adopt the standards and integrate the data and compilability is implicit in the answer and trust. It's not easy to implement. Most states collect as data over national security. US and China and Russia all maintain adversarial positions. Stats. No impact to debris. That's the line. Evidence most collisions don't involve spacecraft. Lifetime risk for debris is less than 0.001%. All of their evidence is hyperbolic, talking about buildup over years. Our evidence says that it literally only takes removing 5 debris a year. Space debris impact is high. Over 16 popular culture race collisions in space. Almost all articles are exaggerating, misleading. Debris is not a crisis. Space is empty and fast. 1/2 of a degree is 40 miles long. We don't put satellites closer together than 1/2 a degree. Nothing gets in the way of our being able. They have predictably 135 shuttle side 113 ultra function satellite have million objects in fewer than 15 collisions. Why worry? Their satellite solve card is aspirational about potential future satellite projects, and it concludes that funding is a barrier to actually doing it. Other ways those in the industry should help the fund service. The farmers will have access for low price for free. Our methods such as freemium content. One farmer has awareness of service. One of the challenges making the rings financially available beyond the duration of the project, obviously citing their evidence. The 1AC satellite solve disease card says that satellites are necessary but not sufficient to solve disease. They didn't extend the disease impact, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, no Indo-Pac war. That's why conventional nuclear deterrence prevents escalation. Other things aren't able to come to the threshold. All of their evidence relies on someone else pulling the trigger, i.e. if a terrorist attack goes off in India, it doesn't matter because it doesn't mean Pakistan would launch ARN and decide to attack them too, which all of their evidence it seems has to happen. There's also been tons of crisis and cross-checks. They said if they get the nukes, they'll go at anyways, which is inevitable as per their impact claim that they'll be able to steal the tech. We then concludes that a technical shift to declassifying satellite locations can't overcome problems with military training, lack of staff, and political barriers associated with managing SSA. We didn't solve conclusions or technical limitations of the core of SSA capability to prevent from making changes necessary to realize that security guards efforts may be able to execute the 3-phase strategy outlined. However, this will only one part of this only a problem. Much bigger question is whether JMS can deliver the capabilities that are needed. It will not solve the person power expertise of training its issue with U.S. military, nor will replacing the hardware, just bureaucratic, cultural, political barriers that are hindering SSA sharing and cooperation efforts. Comprehensive SSA doesn't solve collisions, no storage capacity, inconsistency, algorithms based on invalid assumptions, intract positional biases, all trigger. 19 operations already challenged risk conjunction against 4 percentages after large one side with no source capacity against the other 96% operators who have comprehensive set of conjunction. They would be continuously conducting avoidance maneuvers, running out of fuel, inconsistent operational infirmities preclude achieving SSA that support assessments of collision probability. Operators contribute or by determining progressive prevent extraction of data maneuvers. Operators struggle to determine which conjectures are too close to operators. It's at operators.
It's not my timer.
Sorry. It's okay. Okay, is everybody good to go?
Yep.
Yeah. First argument on the second advantage you make, you're like, the counterplan solves this because it's just one country putting shit up into orbit, but you've also made arguments that like hundreds of other countries are going to buy in, they're going to get our technology. Why doesn't that just mean the proliferation of like it just, I don't know why the counterplan would be able to solve that.
Well, one, they come in later, because the counterplan has it done immediately. The argument also isn't just about the sheer amount of countries, it's also about the regulatory confusion. Because the affirmative does this without the overall regulatory mechanism to do it, then like it causes all these kinds of issues. Also, like this argument applies to the app. So like even if you win that it takes out the counterplan, it definitely
No, I was just trying to like understand why you thought that the counterplan solved back for it, because I really don't. Let's go to the counterplan. Which government contractors are used? Like, do we just like resort to the ones that the United States is already using to like contract out satellites and ADR technology?
Our evidence says with several commercial firms. I'm not sure like which specific firms it speaks
But
to.
would you assume that it's just like the actors that we're already using now?
Maybe, but I don't want to like say that because I'm worried you're gonna like read a disad that says that's like bad.
I mean, that would be kind of rude of us to say that on the 1AR, but
okay,
yeah,
so
no, we're not going to do that.
Okay. Well,
I promise you.
Okay.
Okay, I want to talk about this like follow-on arguments. Any evidence, or actually the declaration planks first. Any evidence that says China or Russia? Because I really don't think that there is.
Like
I think your cards are pretty good, like generally about like why countries plural would perceive U.S. declarations, but any evidence on Russia and China?
Well, if it's good that countries would perceive U.S. declarations, then obviously China and Russia would perceive them.
No, I mean, like we've read evidence that says that they would not, so I'm wondering where your evidence says that they
also
would.
Like, as generic.
No,
like,
it's very specific to Russia and China, but I mean,
like,
that's fine. The answer to that is no. Buy-in, does it happen, like, buy-in, do Russia and China buy into the technology of the United States?
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually, why?
For a bunch of different reasons. One is because bottom-up norms are more likely to be taken, so even if the government doesn't start with it, the private industry would be incentivized to. The second argument is this kind of game theory thing.
What private industry in Russia and China?
Like
well,
they're all run by the all the
You didn't read ads about that.
run by the
Roscosmos
government.
is the state-owned corporation for.
That's true.
space
Just like
activities.
NASA is state-owned, it doesn't mean that there's not like private industry.
F question mark.
Ev question mark?
Yeah.
Like the argument is that like private buy-in. You never made the argument that like those companies.
Okay, I'm sorry. You said bottom up, and then there was a second one that you were saying.
Okay, so then there are a bunch. Like game theory says
I'd love to hear them.
The Linky 19 evidence speaks to like game theory, tit for tat dynamic in which coalitions are built over time.
Next.
Okay. Next one is the fear of losing court cases. The norm that's set by having low-level private actors do it eventually creates a legal norm that causes others to buy in.
Okay.
Then there's pressure from non-compliers to act.
Yep. Thanks.
Damage limitation.
Yeah.
Damage limitation negotiations. DA impeachment.
Does anybody else want to take a bathroom break? I don't want to be the only one.
Yeah, I actually.
Okay.
Thanks, I just sent him that
Yeah,
one.
Ryan was my coach in high school, so that's kind of why I got the job, I think.
Good.
I'm sorry, I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, good.
These would be helpful. Negotiation not going for continuous time one more no link useful for strike no offense. Negotiations not going for can see there's no pin point no impact to the currency rate above impeachment credible threat of removal causes I ran more Trump receives. The easiest way to grade a short-term burst in approval ratings is to send troops into battle who's been reluctant so far, but impeachment is a serious threat causes him to reconsider that outweighs a magnitude and causes cascading effects. US will break the nuclear taboo which freaks out every other country in the region and leads them to pursue deterrence capabilities. B time frame need have to act fast to deflect from impeachment. The plan's ADR mechanism takes a long time to believe, but the DA happens as soon as the plan passes. Conviction turns solvency means China backs out. And I going for 2016 now said the shop will face be Jupiter complicated shop will be for a counter pills with a chance political survival the right cloud of administration ability can therefore interfere spiritual city down neither touch the lobby to stop foreign government so will China's capability access oppress the chance political vulnerability within socially diplomatic leverages the impeachment for movement that Trump to Lincoln's last year successful for his people speech expected from impeachment for translation raise as Trump's ability fall through viability event deal successful removal causes US Russia war low to 17 the food type in Carmel key faith and Trump with bad action hope will die to Trump impeachment force of China placed by Pence of Washington and Moscow action facing confrontation for escalation of military activity in Ukraine to movements to joining NATO risk of clash between US and Russia forces it increase exponentially. The first argument is that the plan is Congress, which means there's no link. This is a shit interpretation of fiat. It should not include mindset shifts. It makes it impossible to win any politics game, which is key to neg ground and current events research plus education. NSP is the executive. If Congress is involved at all, it would only be through subcommittees. By the way, this card is defining NSP in lowercase, whatever the hell that comment in cross-ex was about. Oliver English in 18 actions generate use space policy, executive branch president determines over an space policy, legislative authors, subcommittees to provide for overseas activities, implementation, appropriation, subcommittees, review civil space for funding, investment, appropriate funds, agency budgets, empirics, proof, Bush issued his NSP before Congress even reviewed it. Spring 07, Bush tried to direct guard policy, U.S. on space Congress needs to pay attention to directive language, directive consistency, principle to for interpretation, members, Congress trying to direct rules, search, direct interest in space. Their next argument is you who won't flip, don't know how this is possible, but they picked the worst card I've ever seen to make this claim. It asserts in 2 lines, this is a Democratic fantasy, but then most of the card is about the implications it would have for 2020, which has nothing to do with the DA. They do not get new one-hour evidence with completely new warrants for impeachment, punish them for reading a bad card. GP defection triggers the impactful conviction, not necessary. Powell 115, if a couple of GP senators go to convention, will be attracted to senators turn against the president, consider senators in purple states would be safe for Congress to get a popular president to defeat secret prompt. Other several GP senators have voted for removal. Trump is down and walking as to Trump to become American staffers answer if nothing new happens then go. Impeachment is fluid as possible enough to get senators so nervous they try to come to resent it isn't locked. Senator specific Republicans are willing to switch. It only takes one to create momentum. Couple 11 through 2 the coalition decided they had to have rather than mentioning 20 prior to mention just one who was the first Republican things to turn one number Woody Hogan candidates surrounding work with Timothy Sassy, Collins, Alexander Gardner, Trump's rules under Royal Senate, Senate for Revolution, some abandoned president, saved themselves last minute, but switching possible approval of 12 action removing Steve around the float as possible go around means the Trump Democrats and independents that probable Nova impossible although which makes a change the last minute McConnell to would not be able to dominate impeachment by fast minute plots was hearings being removable possible young no 11-16 question whether Republicans are still near Pebbles work from Beatrice Cartels to news Ukraine controversy and weakens to dominate the president the next week will be even worse controversy whether the Democrats are impeach Republicans would have been conventional evidence wisdom has been dealt a blow. Their next argument is plan is win for foreign policy. It's just an assertion that Trump would tweet about it for our evidence. Good. Polls the American public says Russia seen as America's greatest security threat. All cooperation with Russia is treated as a great security risk, particularly when filtered through suspicion about Trump motives. 19 U.S. established like a spiral confrontation with Russia. Political fissures in U.S. will responsibility Congress to shelter Trump's relations with Moscow. Outrage over Russia rise of both parties here. Russia subsidy Congress making it really difficult for the president to pass legislation to remove the military from cruiser cooperating with the Russian military. Russia's unique as a poison ivy that pervades Trump's presidency. The flame confirms every fear about Trump during Putin's lapdog was especially important when they've conceded the internal link that the only way it's impeachment is possible if the Democrats construct a narrative that paints Trump as a national security threat. During 9/30, making more about Trump to Ukraine, one very large Trump's poison ivy proposed Trump's presidency to Russia. The assumption of the Senate number of votes for assumption questions based on majority of states is assuming how politicians around some members how they always will Republicans for not to be associated with radical behavior, damaging discourse and be bursted down, describe colleagues as nervous as hell. Their next argument is space policy not controversial. Yeah, but cooperation with Russia and China is. This card is just like no one pays attention to Trump's tweets about Space Force, which, if anything, only disproves their argument above about Trump being able to deflect blame over the cooperation by tweeting about it. Engagement with Russia equips Pelosi with arguments to galvanize public opposition about Trump. Against Trump, votes C-1030 Pelosi sees no concern with Republican committee seats and for how she's supposed to have safe Pelosi such words to generate the greatest possible votes for any action the House takes. He just stressed the dire scene. At least reveal her concern with Trump protection, Russian to rebuild all those between all I know is Trump is absolutely self-included responsibility was Russia have a president politically, personally, or financially. 25th Amendment argument is about the ability for it to be invoked if Trump is interfering with impeachment proceedings. Clearly not about him starting war. There's zero precedent for that application. White House can't check Trump. But in 19 Trump has gone through the national security advisory 13 months. President who want the job. That's not true. Trump described the NSA as nothing getting with someone who watches the president make decisions. Holds his extras a reminder that the national security situation compressed and abandoned by Trump's presidential ego. The first card, no lash out card they read begs the question of the link argument because it presumes he still has support and says that he feels he doesn't need to lash out, which has obviously changed when he's about to be the first president to be forcibly removed from office. Public opinion swinging toward impeachment causes Trump to become desperate, makes escalation likely. While 10-7, if the evidence leads to impeachment, public spending towards that move. And if these Republicans are aggressive signs the White House is going in increasingly desperate, Trump is likely to see foreign policies way different. Some of you, some White House war, manufacturer crisis, gasoline, dangerous waste, president who's desperate for in the weak bargaining position. And impeachment is the most likely cause of lash out. Full term solves every impact better. Kinzer 17, if Trump's public against the collapse, the attack, another crime provocation, justified attack on North Korea. I run to be easy. Trump guns to be a shock. You lash out towards the argument of what will be safe for you to blunder towards the end of term. Because Americans never get a full term in 4 years of pain and Trump hated term to lead to all that in a generation. What's up?
We have more time.
Sure.
Read. I think that
This?
No, sorry. This under like no conviction possible.
No conviction possible. Approval in key states is flexible to terms of McConnell's decision date. 11-19 Trump stating were to follow McConnell chooses his own food, future over Trump. McConnell's always inclusive for the excise benefits politically. Trump stating had his approval in Colorado, Maine, North Carolina, so GP senators of peace and intelligence races. They will dump Trump and non-testable programs if you move the public opinion, you move senators. Enough people haven't made up their mind. Holland 11-19 is public player Americans will change their minds. Mark the part out won't change their minds. Please send this out. I marked it out like
9:37. Sorry, I didn't get to it. Okay.
I'll just put out to just read this.
Okay, yeah.
So number.
let's start it again. Okay, stop. Very bad. All right, the document has been sent. The order is Advantage 1, Advantage 2, the unilateral counterplan, and the impeachment dissent. Does everyone have it pulled up? Awesome. Yes, indo-pact nuclear war. There are evidence that the assumed terrorist acquisition of a tactical nuclear weapon. Increased recruitment is key to this armament evidence is incredibly specific. They can't overwhelm 70 facilities. Otherwise, big defense is not about this. Is not about this. Which means game theory necessarily does not constrain India. Threatens retaliation all the time. The Wheaton evidence says fiat solves it. Normal means causes funding and new hires, which guarantees that overcomes any of the problems outlined in this evidence. They say SSA doesn't solve solutions. This is the relevant SSA plus ADR is necessary even if some debris is too small to track, which is what this evidence is about. ADR technology cleans it up. Advantage 2. Space miscalculations go nuclear. Space is offense dominant, which military and country reliability on space systems for military capabilities means that they certainly strike first, ask questions later. They say ADR feels that links to the counter plan, but not to the affirmative, because the plan creates safety standards and government development, which creates rules of the road for safe development safe development of ADR. The counter plan does not do that, which means that ADR only feels in a world of the counter plan. It doesn't feel in a world of the ethics cooperation causes the best scientists in the world to work together and make work. This evidence is just too old. They say no space arms race. Game theory does not apply because other countries think that space is already being weaponized in a battle for arms because of unilateral deployments of ADR that are coming. That's the one ACC evidence. Yes, arms races. This evidence is just about the Soviet Union, which means the EU should reject it because it doesn't take into account new strategic dynamics in the announcement of the Space Force or deployment of technology. Now, they say empirically deny this is about cyber capabilities, not misperceptions. Misperception would be that it doesn't matter. China and Russia say yes to the affirmative. The first is military and economic reasons. They're dependent on space assets. That was above. The second argument is international prestige. They want a seat at the table and the ability to negotiate international norms. That's when they see Wheaton and Ansel duo, which means that they certainly say yes to the F. The third argument is liability. The word that they're going to get to, which means that they say yes to cleaning it up. You know that kind of way. It doesn't solve Advantage 2. One is in Pecan evidence on indicts commercial solutions. Specifically, Russia and China will think commercial ADR is a military contract like Lockheed Martin. They think we're cloaking our intentions in commercial activity in order to illegally put weapons in space. Which means that they certainly mirror escalation pressures, and they do it quickly because they see deployments happening. No evidence that Russia and China will contract U.S. companies, which means that they don't follow 1 space programs are state-owned and intertwined with national pride. That's when I see Whedon and Ansel do, which means that they think that if U.S. contracts offer to clean up their debris for money, they'll think it's a slap in the face of their national pride. I'll read another piece of evidence. They don't follow on to 2012 European COCs use to establish that the capital and active Atlantic conference each rendered indoors. Like what if you space for countries China, Russia, and have reportedly themselves with the COCs that they were insufficiently consulted on the President's declarations and notifications fail. The Lewis evidence says the declarations are perceived as being toothless and a substitute for real material policy. They certainly don't. The piece of evidence that they read to answer it is Gregor from 2010. It doesn't assume Trump flip-flopping on tons of issues and the declaration of the Space Force, which means that they certainly don't trust the count. This doesn't apply to the app though, because the app is an olive branch by declassifying our satellite locations. The cooperation it causes delays. Argument fiat solves it, and say yes proves that. And say yes certainly proves that the negotiations happen quickly. It also doesn't solve advantage. It doesn't solve advantage to Lorson says that commercial actors generate more debris and don't abide by safety standards which the counterclaim does not develop. Impeachment does that. No turns case. Even China pulled out, we still do it with Russia, which is sufficient and all sufficient because Russia will pressure China to follow on. They also say yes arguments disprove that they would pull out because they have too many mutual interests. The Senate never can make space support. As they're worried about winning the election, which means that base support overwhelms the GOP. Yes, new one-hour arguments are justified. It's extrapolating on a Tracy argument and the one and all read more evidence. GOP doesn't trust the voters. Brooks 10 to 30 wins, possible more than 20 senators will vote evidence against Trump with the overall. It's hard to imagine more than one or two Republican senators say well, to convict Democrats, and no one moderates and swing to each other. Base project because the numbers will red states and because of impeachment is not a primary. Americans are different. They have to win 67 senators. All their evidence is extremely aspirational, and there's no piece of evidence that indicates that they could get to that number. Next is the link to me. Space is not perceived. It's not perceived as being tied to the executive because of long-lasting effects that don't get tied to any particular politician. That's the core and evidence. Yes, Russia is a national security threat. That's our argument. The plan constrains ADR technology and gets information about their weapons, which means that our link spin has to outweigh theirs because Trump is already involved with Russia. See Mueller in Helsinki, which means that the base doesn't care about Russia as national security threat, but they do care about foreign policy wins, like the affirmative. The next no Vasha. First is the lander piece of evidence. Trump's base is America first in isolation, which means that diversions would upset them. Syria troop withdrawal proves that he's trying to rally them with diversionary peace. The second is the Luke's evidence. He divert with diplomacy on North Korea. Foreign policy wins are popular with the base, and research disproves that diversions rally support. Syria tomahawks also disprove that Trump would use nuclear weapons, and there's no escalation. I'll read another piece of evidence. No diversionary rewards unpopular, and their evidence inflates risk. Economist 18. First about Trump ready to stand benefit by the play. Operations fueled by conservative judgment on the trails cascade every American intervention. Intervention.
Cool, I'm gonna finish Tomlin. And then, the orders, the impeachment disad, the unilateral counterplan, the SATs, or actually, sorry, the ADR advantage and the SATs advantage. Okay, is anybody not ready? Iran war outweighs this the most tangible and immediate impact Trump would have to launch immediately to deflect from impeachment proceedings. It causes conflict escalation spirals because it breaks the nuclear taboo and pushes other countries in the region to get defensive capabilities of their own, and it's most probable for Trump it's a no-cost option because he's already about to get booted. Turns the case A, credible threat of impeachment causes Russia and China to back out of the agreement. It clouds his administration's ability to negotiate with other countries. They don't want to strike a deal with someone who's about to get booted out of office because they don't think he'll be able to follow through. It creates political vulnerability and decreases leverage in negotiations, so we never come to a deal. That's Garver. Their only arg is that we'd still do it with Russia, but they conceded that B, impeachment causes war with Russia. Pence created friction between the U.S. and Moscow. Tensions would escalate in Ukraine, and Pence would move forward NATO troops. Low says the chance increases exponentially. The first argument is no Trump's case because they do with Russia, but they drop that China would say no too, which means it left with no one doing the affirmative. When you also read the Russia card, which was done above, they assert say yes disproves. It doesn't account for impeachment, which changes the game. As per the above Trump's case analysis, they say Senate wouldn't convict. You should frame the uniqueness debate through the conceded internal link argument. The only way impeachment will happen is if the Democrats can construct a narrative that Trump is an active national security threat. The plan is that narrative because an overwhelming percentage of Americans see Russia as their biggest enemy. The plan would be spun as giving them concession. The threshold we have to win is low. Conceded our arguments about momentum. It only takes one senator to create a chain reaction that produces enough follow-on to convict. Proven by Nixon's scandal, where Hogan was the first one to defect and approved a wave of followers. Cup cites multiple people who could be the first mover now. Romney, Gardner, Sassy, Collins have all been reluctant to defend him. Plus, hearings put it on the brink. It's been devastating for Trump, which makes it even more likely that something seemingly small can push it over the edge. That's young. Conceded McConnell could still flip based on approval in key states that state, and they've conceded that we could only have to win a credible threat of impeachment to trigger the terminal impact. The arguments they make to answer this is just a lot of bluster. They assert first that they can get new arguments, which obviously isn't responsive, nor an argument in itself. It's also not allowed, and their extrapolation is just you have to win 67 senators. All of the arguments we made above should check back for this sufficiently. It's not weighted with new evidence that has a distinct warrants I should answer sufficiently. The next argument that space isn't perceived, but Russia is. It's massive. It's a national security risk. It's perceived by members of the base as well as general Congress members, and we have a couple pieces of evidence that prove the distinctness. The Mana's evidence says that Trump is seen as uniquely suspicious on Russian issues, which flips the direction of their answers to this argument. Drew is even better at contextualizing it. Russia is the one consistent thread through his presidency, which makes him look guilty. So the very fact that they say it's, quote, non-unique is our argument. It's a brink and proves that new issues over Russia in the midst of impeachment hearings is the worst possible thing that can happen for Trump's presidency. We're ahead on the explanation because we literally started with this link argument in the 1MC, and the first time the nuance explanation comes out in the 1AR. Obviously, I don't get answers to the 2AR explanation. Last is the Lashout debate. Yes, Lashout largely answered in the overview. Basis accused by rhetoric that's bombastic and willing to go to war with Iran. All of our internal links are specific to different conflict zones. They say that troop withdrawal is popular. It doesn't disprove broader dynamics. Even if it's popular to withdraw some troops, it doesn't disprove strikes, etc. Other things Trump could do that are escalatory or unpopular. It's also uncarded. No warrant for new, so you should reject an arm face. The lifting card also doesn't provide a distinct warrant. They've dropped the argument that national security advisors have quit, so there's no one to check Trump in the status quo anymore. The diversionary war evidence you're in the 1R is Trump says that he's uniquely likely to opt out because of his psychological tendencies. Don't force me, you're in the wheel. Disad is massive. You know that counterplan. The counterplan solves the entirety of the affirmative. It does two separate things. First, it creates a domestic SDA repository, which solves declassification that their evidence says is necessary for running ADR capabilities. Second, it invests in successful ADR technology, but it makes sure that that process is transparently and notified publicly, which solves all of their arguments predicated off of it being unsecure, other countries feeling anxious over it. Two separate framing issues. One, sufficiency. The counterplan solves enough of the affirmative that the disad outweighs because they've never made a links to net benefit argument. Two, quick implementation is key, and only the counterplan does that because the plan requires implementation over the long haul. Having to check with different actors before we move something, we're not able to solve quick debris, which is necessary to prevent extinction. As per the 1AC internal link evidence, they say 1AC commercialization, notification solves. The Greco evidence says it's sufficient. I'll do the specific debate of the Veta and Greco evidence below where they indicted. Even if other states are unsure, don't own the the commercial enterprises, eventually it spills up to the governments as per the buy-in debate, which again will be done below. SLS also proves that even not everything we do that's commercial is perceived as inherently aggressive, like SpaceX programs for exploration, which isn't itself dual use. The SU evidence is about European COC agreements, which are distinct and don't disprove the buy-in evidence we've read, which is literally specific about STA and SSA technology. I'll do the buy-in debate here. The Fergoli evidence says that step-by-step process is key because it leads to smoke in other countries. The Lennox evidence does an analysis of game theory, and our evidence says that courts force other countries to involve once the precedent has been set. Non-compliers are also going to be forced by states that have already agreed to it eventually, which is the Salter evidence. They have no answer to any of these arguments. A certain out of declarations fail. They've dropped the Beta evidences, which is about retrieval missions, which solves. They assert Greco is good, but not about the affirmative. Obviously sufficient enough. The last set of arguments are why Fiat is capable of solving the quick time frame key arguments. Not sure why that's true. They still have to get approval from other states in order to actually do the removal, which is what the argument is about. Even if they Fiat the plan text itself. Last is Larson. The private companies plank we have solves this by rearranging and making sure companies do it. They also have an incentive because it hurts their bottom line not to. The ADR advantage. The ADR fails argument doesn't take out the counterplan. The argument about rules obviously is disproven, and the quick implementation stuff on the other page disproves it. No risk of space war. Other countries aren't willing to escalate. Game theory tensions prove they won't go to war. Attribution means that actors always know who filed the first thought. The Mushler evidence is analysis of the literature. Says broadly overhyped, doesn't lead to mass escalation, and their internal link certainly isn't the way to solve it because all of the other issues should overcome. Just debris satellites colliding in the status quo. The SATS advantage. No Indo-Pac impact. They dropped that it's inevitable. They steal the technology to develop nuclear weapons, which means it happens now, but they've also dropped it doesn't cause Indo-Pakistan war. Their terminal impact requires some kind of strike happening, but they don't have any contextualization of how that occurs, why terrorists think it's necessary, or why India would react in that way. They haven't drawn an evidence, and the 1AR doesn't say anything here. The Whedon evidence also doesn't say satellites is key to it. It doesn't say it can provide food security because there are other things they need. And Fiat can't solve it because they don't do funding for the farm sector.
How much do we have?
350. Sorry, trade. 348.
ADR advantage first, sorry, the satellites advantage, unilat, and impeachment. Okay, everybody good to go? Big F, small dis-at space war happens quick and spills down to nuclear war on Earth. Unilateral tests and deployments of ADR in the status quo create dual-use ambiguity that causes escalation in nuclear configuration would turn to lash-out impact because it provokes aggressive actors like Trump to lash out. In the immediate case that all of our satellites go down because obviously our military is dependent upon those, so they view it as an offensive attack against the United States, and the only reaction to those would also obviously be to lash out, to lash out against China and Russia. Only the app can prevent nuclear retaliation and escalation through confidence and transability measures that spill over to be able to solve broadly the no ADR to this bad arguments. Increasing the amount of cooperation between China, Russia, and the United States would obviously be able to solve back for the investments arguments, but also a bad weapon doesn't matter because it still causes miscalculation and misperceptions. That was a Dobos piece of say so no risk of space war because of attribution costs and game theory arguments, but the impact evidence doesn't assume the increasing amount of ADR technology and the availability and viability of that technology, which causes miscalculation, but also space is an offense-dominant regime, which increases the risk of miscalculation, and there's an incentive to strike because it takes out all of the military capabilities of the United States or the adversarial actor. So obviously, if they were to strike, they view it as a strike first would be able to get them to win the war, and to be able to prevent a risk of be able to prevent them from taking out their satellites last the first advantage. We'll concede that there's no impact in the Indo-Pac where we're not going for the unilateral counterpoint. Why would China or Russia believe the United States, let alone Trump, has to say about our intentions in space when we are in the middle of a trade war and around to putting in new sanctions down on Russia? Even if they eventually started to believe us, their initial reactions will be to prepare for aggressive actions and build up offensively, which is the one EC Seidel and Lewis card from the 2EC that says that it causes a process of miscalculation. All of their declarations solve cards are not in the context of Russia and China. We have hyper-specific evidence that says that in the context of the SQO, they would obviously misperceive declarations from the United States because we are offensively posturing towards them with our ADR technology and also with the Space Force right now. Also, the commercialization of the counterplan is also seen as militarization because we are literally using Lockheed Martin and the other commercial sectors to bolster our technology and advancements over Russia and China. That's the Pekin and Dobos piece of evidence, which takes out any of their declarations or any other unilateral clarification cards. It doesn't apply to the app, though. Cooperating over information means they have access to check proximity of satellites, which is near the space objects, etc. They could just check the information themselves, which means they don't have to trust us to be able to do that. Now, I don't need the follow-on arguments. There's no follow-on. Conceded 1AR card that says that the COC proves that China and Russia are not willing to negotiate or come to the table for negotiations and say yes to buying into the United States if they are not the first movers within the regulations because they fear it as getting left out, and they will obviously go abide by their own norms, and disproves the game theory arguments because in the past they have not been persuaded by other small countries that have said that they are willing to support the COC. They say, but also their evidence is not their evidence about how it's conventionally bad is not in the context of ADR, and it's the purpose. But obviously ADR technology has the purpose to destroy, so they don't solve. Other states say yes, which means that the quick time frame and fiat resolves those questions of quick time frame, and it doesn't take out the impact to the advantage anyway. The impeachment is add. Go to the no diversions argument. One AR was not advisors. The first is the landlord evidence is that the base is isolationist. They have intention that they hate intervention in Syria. Troop withdrawal proves that Trump thinks that the route to rally and support is through nuclear use. It's through diversionary peace, but also to the lockdown piece of evidence is the last shot won't be nuclear or escalation in Syria. Tomahawks were conventional and they didn't escalate. Research proves that diversions cannot rally the base. The 1 AR evidence proves that Trump is obviously basking in an endless war right now. Yes, we get new 1 AR cards. It's this 1998 where we don't get to answer the arguments of the 1 AR that you are making. You literally made new arguments. The no conviction now, yes, no conviction and risk in the future. 2 AC cards is much better than they are giving it credit for. First, Republicans fear retaliation for the base if they are going to support impeachment happening. There are multiple senators, either in red states or swing states, that haven't yet created a coalition based to run on the impeachment and vote report. So it wouldn't be enough because Syria is already on the front and still hasn't changed public opinions. And 2, impeachment isn't a priority for the people that are their evidence outlines, which is enough to be able to prevent conviction from happening in the first place. Even if only a few senators are key to being able to flip, our evidence says that no senators, the 1 AR piece of evidence says that no senators would flip, and even if a few did, it would not influence the other ones. The link turn arguments are the last arguments I'm going to extend in or actually I'm going to answer the turns case arguments. Say yes disproves that economic and military incentives and the viability of the space will obviously be able to overwhelm the impeachment. Even if it doesn't assume this, we would obviously overwhelm them because they're dependent upon them for everyday activities. The link turn, the plan is seen as a foreign policy when the CEDAW evidence proves that the public and government are viewing ADR technology and unilateral deployments as a threat to the nation and foreign policy now because it risks our space assets. Even if it doesn't seem like that 100% be the case, reasons why there is a motivation to impeach right now means you air out on questions of plan spin. That's a CEDAW, Pekin, and Doblas. Of course he would tweet about it. He would frame it as America being able to get concessions on offensive military dominance that the Russians are able to access now as per the ADR technology and information over the military satellite declassification as well. Even if cooperation is generally seen as bad and as a risk for foreign policy, their link evidence isn't specific to the app, and we are the only ones with an explanation over how it would be spun in the future. But also Mueller and Helensky and NATO withdrawal threats all prove that there's no risk of a link.